entrepreneurs looking at starting a business in a particular sector is to, where possible, gain work experience in that sector to better understand the industry and the problems in the industry that you potentially can solve, increase your skill level and delivering those solutions, and also, I think very importantly, increasing your network in the market, which really is important for entrepreneurs looking to get a business off the ground.
It's about getting started. But more than anything, to get started, you need to be able to demonstrate the understanding of the market, as you've said. And even if it means taking then little bite-sized pieces to start then building that body of evidence, because as you build it with by contract, you then start positioning yourself for larger and larger contracts, and obviously then give your customers comfort. And I guess in that process, you grow with your customers and your clients as well, as you dig in more and more in how you can support them.
Trust is the currency in this industry, as we all know. So we back every installation with our proprietary compliance checklist, which guarantees safety and regulatory approvals. So that removes the risk for our clients.
So I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen with entrepreneurs is that they want to be client ready, meaning that they need to think outside of what is typically your paperwork. So I've seen that a lot of the customers don't have sufficient market research. So what we find there is that the lack of deep understanding in the market, so they're not able to identify their ideal customer or the pain points, which means that they're not able to do what Rita does for her clients by targeting specific solutions that solve their problems, but also the customers are prepared to pay for.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs in Energy Conversations. Real conversations about real challenges and real solutions for entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Energy Conversations, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast brought to you in partnership with the African Energy Leadership Center at the Wits Business School. I am your host, Thokozile Zambane, and if you've followed the series from the start, you already know that we're not here to sugarcoat the journey. We're here for the real talk, real challenges, real conversations, and real solutions for entrepreneurs building South Africa's energy sector. In the last few episodes, we tackled the realities of launching an energy business, navigating compliance and procurement, and understanding what it takes to become investment ready. But today we shift the focus to market access. This is about how to land real clients, how to position yourself, build trust, and deliver in a sector that doesn't always make it easy to break in. We're asking, how do you move from being in business to being in demand? And to help us break this down, I am joined by three incredible guests, each bringing different perspectives. First up, we have Oliver Johnston, a renewable energy project developer and CEO at Solink, who's turned an early stage venture into a credible industry player. He is now on the other side of the table, assessing suppliers and delivery partners. Then we have Rita Chen, Managing Director at Agripower, working at the intersection of agriculture and renewable energy. Her company has had to carve space in two tough industries and win trust in both. And rounding us out, we have Mandisa Ngcobo, founder of Nobantu Consulting, a powerhouse in market access and enterprise development. Mandisa's worked with entrepreneurs and corporates to bridge the readiness gap and get more small businesses plugged into real supply chain opportunities. But before we actually get deep into the episode, I'd like to actually take a moment to ask each of our guests to briefly introduce themselves to our listeners. Rita, if I can start with you, please.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Rita Chen. I'm the founder and the managing director of Agripower. So we're a solutions business. We're a EPC, turnkey EPC company that specializes in residential and commercial solar systems. So we're not only an installer, but we provide customized solutions to our clients, predominantly in the mining and agriculture sector.
Thank you very much. Mandisa, if I can ask you to briefly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Togo. My name is Mandisa Ngcobo. I'm the founder and managing director of Nobantu Consulting. We specialize in building strong engines that allow businesses to accelerate and sustain their revenue growth. So we're revenue growth specialists, particularly focusing on access to market and increasing revenue line items in your income statement. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Oliver, if I can end off with you.
Yeah, great. It's obviously great to be on the show. Yeah, I'm the CEO and founder of the Solink Group, and I've been involved in the renewable energy sector in South Africa for about 13 years. And our group specializes in three key areas. It acts as a turnkey renewable energy consultancy for large commercial industrial companies looking to procure renewable power. And we have a separate division called SolTrack, which is a performance monitoring platform that looks at optimizing the renewable energy assets. And then Solink Energy Brokers, which acts as an intermediary between large suppliers of wheeled energy power and customers who are looking to procure wheeled energy power from those suppliers.
Thank you so much for those introductions. Really looking forward to the episode and your insights. Let's get into it. We often hear the phrase market ready, but few people can define it in practical terms. I think it's more than compliance. It's about being capable, reliable, and trusted by actual clients. So let's start with the behind the scenes look. Oliver, I'd like to begin with you. Solink wasn't always a credible market player. What were the key building blocks that helped you become market ready and shape the business that you have?
I think a few key points there. I think one was really having a foundation and understanding and experience in the renewable energy sector. So I think starting off Solink really, that was incredibly important for us, that we understood the market well and understood the players in the market. So I think that's a real core suggestion for any entrepreneurs looking at starting a business in a particular sector, is to, where possible, gain work experience in that sector to better understand the industry and the problems in the industry that you potentially can solve, increase your skill level in delivering those solutions, and also, I think, very importantly, increasing your network in the market, which really is important for entrepreneurs looking to get a business off the ground. Another key area in that space for us has been landing those first initial customers. I think that is another area where entrepreneurs sometimes get too excited when starting a business, and they see the dollar signs, etc., of all their plans they want to achieve. But really, you've got to earn your stripes. And I think getting those first few customers is so important. And I think actually almost looking at that as an investment as a business. So whether you're working at cost or even below cost, get those first few customers, get that track record. It really then helps you leverage that to get additional suppliers, and a more market related fee into the future. And maybe just a final point from me on that side is, I think another area that we've really built on or understood to kind of grow our presence in the market is presenting a full vision to a customer, and a full expectation of the full delivery of the project, but then really contracting on smaller bite-sized pieces of that. So I think that the principle there is to turn a prospect into a customer through, it can be a very small contract, and then kind of utilizing that to develop the relationship and kind of building the trust, and then you can expand on that.
Thank you for that, Oliver. Really, really helpful framing. And I think it also just speaks to the fact that, readiness isn't about perfection. It's about getting started. But more than anything, to get started, you need to be able to demonstrate the understanding of the market, as you've said. And even if it means taking then little bite-sized pieces to start then building that body of evidence, because as you build it by contract, you then start positioning yourself for larger and larger and larger contracts, and obviously then give your customers comfort. And I guess in that process, you grow with your customers and your clients, as well as you dig in more and more in how you can support them. Rita, I'd like to hear from you and bring you into the conversation. Agripower really operates in demanding sectors. As you've said, it's agriculture, it's mining, it's energy sector as it is. And what does market readiness look like for a business like yours? And how did Agripower position itself to be taken seriously in an industry that's often dominated by large or legacy players?
Thank you for that question, Thokozile. And I think it goes to the heart of the challenge for every entrepreneurs. It's like, how do you get a seat at the table when the table is owned by the giants, right? So for us, the answer wasn't to try and outmuscle these big players. It's really to change the game entirely through strategy of deep customization. And hence I said Agripower is more a energy solutions company. So we customize per client's request and their objectives, right? And unmatched reliability. So what does that mean? So we actually build our credibility not by claiming to be everything to everyone, and by being the absolute best at understanding and solving our clients' exact problems. And that means that we don't sell prepackaged solutions. And we get a lot of clients asking us, okay, so give us a prepackaged solution. And we say, that's not about us, right? So we actually provide custom engineered power systems and solutions. So whether a client needs a hybrid solution, blending diesel generator with existing solar systems or vice versa, we're able to adapt to the client's specific requirements, or a full technical assessment for an insurance company on their insurance claims. And we advise us to Old Mutual and Discovery on insurance related solar claims, or we can complete like energy efficient systems rollout for manufacturing SMMEs specifically, because, with energy intensive users, especially SMMEs, it's all about energy efficiency. So we built what they need to be secure and efficient. So, but customization alone is not enough. And trust is the currency in this industry, as we all know. So we back every installation with our proprietary compliance checklist, which guarantees safety and regulatory approvals. So that removes the risk for our clients. And that commitment quality is why we are a preferred partner for a lot of the OEMs. So it's not just clients, but a lot of the international OEMs enjoy working with us. And I think finally, we cemented our role as a serious player by becoming a key advisor to institutions like your Discovery and the Gauteng Innovation Hub, like by helping the SMMEs navigate through the energy transition, and, advising some of these big giants on how to make a installed solar system compliant, which were previously not compliant. So this isn't just about an installation. It's actually about providing strategic advice to some of our clients. So we've actually positioned ourselves not as an energy installer, but as a trusted technical partner. So we de-risk the journey for our clients to energy independence. And so we became the obvious choice for those who couldn't afford to get it wrong. So we always tell clients we are not the cheapest, but we are not the most expensive either. And there's a reason why you pay a price for, valuable advice or valuable product. And lastly, I think we believe strongly, our ethos at Agripower is we believe in strategic alliance with our partners. So we don't believe in competition, even though we believe competition is good. So partnership for us is a key. And we realize that our value isn't just in our own technical skills, but in our curated network. So we've built a strong, trusted relationship across the entire energy ecosystem, from financial institutions to IPPs and to EPC contractors and OEMs. And so this allows us to act as a single accountable point of contact for our clients. So our client doesn't just get our expertise, but they actually get access to our entire network. In short, I think we don't just identify the problem, we build a solution, and we orchestrate a perfect team to put everything, all the project together, de-risk the process for our client by managing the entire value chain. So I think that's something that we pride ourselves on.
What you're highlighting is customer-centric solutions, and that speaks to the essence of being in business. You're not in business because for the fun of it, you've actually got to be solving a problem and solving actual problems that your customers have. And I like also what you've shared is that you're also diversifying the offering, so by being able to say, okay, I can then provide these complementary services like to the clients you've mentioned, like Discovery, that also then further bolsters or further speaks to credibility in the space. And I think a very key point that you've also said is network. So, from a customer's perspective, yes, give me the thing that I've asked you for, but what more can you give me? And I think that's that beautiful value add and value creation that you're also able to provide your customers. Mandisa, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. So through Nobantu Consulting, you've helped many entrepreneurs reach procurement and supplier readiness. What would you say is the biggest mindset shift that entrepreneurs need to make to move from simply being compliant to being truly client ready?
I think more than anything, if I was to just give you probably what I'd call a one-liner is how do we move companies from being just qualifying? You touched on the point about it being just a supplier or a compliance issue. And I think you also touched on the point about value creation. So I think the biggest thing is how do we move from how do I qualify, how do I add measurable value, and how do I build trust, which I think is something that we've spoken in length about. So I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen with entrepreneurs is that they want to be client ready, meaning that they need to think outside of what is typically your paperwork. So I've seen that a lot of the customers don't have sufficient market research. So what we find there is that the lack of deep understanding in the market, so they're not able to identify their ideal customer or the pain points, which means that they're not able to do what Rita does for her clients by targeting specific solutions that solve their problems, but also the customers are prepared to pay for. The second critical part is that you have companies that will create products that have a lack of a product market fit. So what happens there is that you've got a product that is probably beautiful, but it doesn't actually serve a significant problem. It doesn't solve a problem, or it's a product that the specified target market doesn't necessarily need. And again, I touch on the unclear target market. Rita, I think, spoke about that, is that they don't develop solutions that are for everyone. And I think that's the challenge that entrepreneurs have, is that they'll create a very blanket solution and that lacks clearly defined, and therefore they can't segment their target market. And what happens is that they've just got a product that they're unable to get to the hands of the consumer because they're either speaking to the wrong consumer or they're not speaking the language. A third thing, which I think is also one of the critical elements, is that they don't clearly define the value proposition. So if your value proposition isn't clear, your customers don't understand what makes the product different, or better yet, what makes you better than the competitors, which also can, as we've seen, results in a lot of failed intentions to stand out against your competitors, especially in a crowded market, as we've seen the rise of the different sectors. And I think the third thing you touched on is obviously regulatory and legal hurdles. And in the energy sector, this is pretty critical. Being able to meet the regulatory requirements, the standards, and the certification. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they put that aside, that compliance element. And then obviously critical to this is the go-to-market strategy, which is how you then communicate your intentions with your product and what you want to, the problems you want to solve to the market with the go-to-market strategy. And I think the challenges there arise when the strategy is not comprehensive, it's not clear, it lacks clear roles and responsibilities, and it doesn't align to what you say in your vision around meeting sales targets, marketing targets, or the product team isn't aligned to what the go-to-market strategy. And I think the final element of it is the lack of financial readiness, is that when customers then do get the business, they underestimate either the cost of the developing the product. So again, it goes to not understanding and not being fully involved in your product development stage, where you thoroughly understand the intricate costs that are involved in the product, which then lead to having a solid financial model. So these businesses find themselves unable to respond to market shocks or turbulence, which, as we know, becomes a challenge in really becoming and staying competitive. And then internally, the lack of organizational readiness. So do you have the right talent, which again, the two other guests have alluded to, the right talent, clear communication channels, and a shared understanding of the go-to-market strategy? I think those are some of the challenges that I've seen. But I think in conclusion, probably my thoughts are just that, how do you move yourself from being someone who just qualifies to give the service to being someone who adds measurable value and is able to build trust in the long run?
Yes, yeah, it's constantly, as an entrepreneur, daily, to say, what am I actually solving? What value am I actually adding to the market? Is it a nice to have, or is it actually a need to have for my customer? And I like what you've also, the fact that you've also touched on, operational readiness, because I think that, for whatever market that you're trying to penetrate, you need to be able to have built a business, or at least have the foundations of a business that can actually respond to that market, but also deliver on the promise that you're making. So I think it's quite important that, we take into account operational readiness as well. And also just reputationally, what are you doing, to make sure that, you're actually building a credible reputation for yourself by simply delivering on what you said you would, when you said you would, how you said you would, I think becomes quite important. And I like what you've also said, just a clear product market fit. We often are creating as entrepreneurs, and we can sit in isolation and have these big dreams, but is there a fit? Is there a fit for what you're presenting? But also, is it the right time? Maybe you're ahead of your competitors or ahead of the market, but it's often important to keep testing it. So one, am I adding value? Two, does this actually, does this fit in the market right now, or is this something that I kind of need to potentially work on in future? And where can I begin? Where can I start with what actually fits? And so thank you for that. And I think what you've all really helped position is the fact that, there's no shortcut to building trust. And really it's sometimes the smallest details that will inevitably make the biggest difference. You've now, let's say you've got your business is technically ready, you've got your documents, you've got some track record, some evidence, but now you really need to stand out. And I'd like us to dig into and unpack positioning, because capability doesn't always equal visibility. And Oliver, I'd like to bring you in. When Solink evaluates suppliers or service providers, what are the specific qualities that make a small business stand out in that selection process?
I think the first thing is obviously clarity and focus of the service offering. I think we are definitely looking for people who are specialized skill sets as opposed to groups who are trying to do a little bit of everything. So I think being very clear on what you offer. And I think, again, particularly for entrepreneurs, really trying to focus that offering is a way to challenge the incumbents. With the incumbents obviously offer normally a wider variety of services, but if you can be very specific in what you're offering and very good at what you're offering, then it helps you access the customer on a specific point, so you're not fighting a larger battle. And Lisa's point is really, the clear. We want to see the clear value to us, and obviously we want them to be solving a problem we have right now. So I think that comes back to the sort of meeting the markets where it's at, which is a concept you've already discussed. I did have a little note in terms of also, I think there's on the one side is just like viewing companies as suppliers, but also then viewing them a little bit as partners. I think from our side, from Solink perspective, partnerships have been super important for us as we scaled up our business. What that means, and maybe what we found hard to effectively structure those partnerships with other smaller businesses or other larger businesses. I think it starts with firstly understanding your own business. So being very clear on what your purpose is, what are the areas that you want to deliver and control on behalf of a particular customer. So being clear on that. I think once you understand that clearly, then you can sort of explore the market to understand who has a complementary skill set or complementary offer that can add the benefits to a customer. So you want to look for that kind of collaborative win-win type approach. And as much as almost contradictorily to what I'm saying is you want a specialized service offering. Often what customers do want is that they want to have one point of call to deal with as much as possible. So I think there's a sort of slightly competing philosophies, but I think one way for a smaller business to kind of manage that is through partnerships. So to being specific in what you deliver, but understanding if there's sort of a wider variety of services that a customer is looking for, is the ability to then partner effectively with companies to then to give that customer a simple single point of call that can cover a wider variety of what they're doing.
And I love what you're saying about then finding or complementary businesses or partnerships to find these collaboration opportunities. And I guess, the reality is, as a small business, you can't be seen to be doing 5,000 things, because as the customer, I'm going to be like, what are you actually doing? Are you actually going to be able to do what I've asked you to do? But to your point, it's to demonstrate that, look, I may be offering you this particular service, but I understand that it ties into a bigger offering that you'd be looking for. So come to me and I can actually give you a turnkey. So you now don't need to be managing 5 different suppliers on this project. I will then, take that risk and I will manage them for you, and I will give you, effectively a complete project that you can then use as a business. So I think it's quite important. And again, the importance of understanding, I guess, not just the market, but understanding your business, understanding what is it that you're actually doing. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're also pivoting, we're thinking, we're adjusting. But it's important that, somebody must be able to wake you up at 3 a.m. in the morning and say, what do you do? And you should literally be able to answer that in one simple sentence, not I'm going to do this and then I do this and, oh, but I'm also really liking this. So I think it's really just crystallizing that and real focus. So thank you very much for this. Really, really, it's gold. It's absolutely been a gold offering. Rita, to hear from you, how would you say, you build brand credibility and visibility in a space where access is often gatekept? I think we have to be honest that some of these sectors, some of these industries are there is some level of gatekeeping in there. How do you counter that? Because I think we can all easily sit in a corner and say, no, I can't get it because they're only giving it to some people, and but what are how do you solve for that? How would you say you build that brand credibility and visibility?
So I think we all agree that we are in a very skeptical industry. So I think evidence is obviously key to this. So we showcase a lot of our projects, case studies. That's our most valuable currency, right? So we don't just talk about what we can do. We actually show the client what we've done. So I like inviting, whether it's potential partners or clients, to our workshop. We say, come and have a look at us. I'm not a fly-by-night company. I don't have an office in my home. We have a workshop, so come and look, right? And when I say we offer after sales service support, we really do. We have stocked spare parts in our workshop, so come and check us out. So that's on the evidence side. And then in terms of documents, so we meticulously document every single project that we've done. So from our clients' initial pain points, we ask them questions, we write it down, document everything, hard data on their energy savings and their return on investments. So we're constantly talking to the clients, changing some of the plans, the initial plans, to accommodate what they want as their ultimate outcome, right? So this tangible proof does the talking for us. It opens up doors, and it's very different to cold calling, which a cold call could never actually do. So that's on the evidence side. And then on second one, more endorsements. And I believe in endorsements can transfer trust. So it's, platforms like your platform, where we have podcast, or applying to, well-known institutions for some of the awards that could actually, build up brand credibility as well. And we also actively leverage the credibility of our established partners and our clients by, asking them for feedback regarding their experience with us and with our services, which really helps with, supporting us and our service standards. Education for us is also key, which positions us as an authority. So we're not just a vendor that sells you things, right? Or sells you services and products. So instead of pushing a sales pitch, we actually give away our expertise for free. So we will ask the client, oh, do you understand this? What's your understanding of this particular system? And, like, we're having an engaging conversation. And we host technical trainings at our workshop as well. And we speak at industry events. So just like this, podcast as well. So it's by educating the market. So we become a valuable, resource to people. And then people will stop seeing you as a company trying to sell them things. And they start to see you as an obvious expert. And then when they are ready to buy, they will come to you to procure these products and services. So I think to break through the gatekeeping, you have to become an invaluable company to the clients. So we lead with proof, and you borrow trust from your allies. That's why I said partnership is very important for us and our networks. And you give away your knowledge. So when you're kind in giving away your knowledge, you actually reap more. So yeah, that's what's built our reputation in the market. And we actually attract visibility. We're not like, we're not commanding it just comes to us, which is a blessing for us. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and you've absolutely done an amazing job at that. Like, I mean, I see how you position and the posts on LinkedIn. You've really built that up over the space of time. So it's really great about building that visibility. But I like what you're also saying. Being willing to give something for free. And again, touching on the point that Oliver made around partnership. So viewing your customer, your client, as a partner. I think we all know that, when a supplier is coming, you want to get money from me, you want an invoice, but make the journey a bit nicer. Hey, like, take me out to dinner. Like, let's do something before you're already saying, hey, give me the contract. So I think it's that nurturing process of building that relationship over time, demonstrating your value, like you're saying, giving away some of that free knowledge. And what that also helps, and I think it speaks to the fact that what you're speaking about is a body of evidence and case studies, and I think many entrepreneurs would say, but I don't have the client yet. How am I going to build the body of evidence? Where am I going to get the case study? But I think that then speaks to what Oliver said earlier about sometimes you've got to be willing to take that knock financially. Maybe you're quoting a bit less so that you can get a foot into the door with that customer, so that you're able to show and build that body of evidence. If it's, and where as far as possible you're investing your own resources, your own time, your own capital in building that body of evidence. The workshop you have set up, the training that you're doing, all speaks to building this holistic body of evidence that really creates trust. And I think brilliantly put in that what it is, it's a combination of storytelling and operational delivery. And I think that's a combination that many entrepreneurs underestimate. Does your story make sense, and can you actually demonstrate that you're able to deliver? And who are you partnered with? And I love what you're saying. You can borrow experience from your partners to give your customers comfort. Just touching on what are the mistakes that entrepreneurs commonly make in how they present or pitch themselves to their clients? What are mistakes they're making in this wooing phase with their clients?
Thank you, Thokozile. I think we've spoken extensively about the first one being the lack of clarity and structure. If your value proposition isn't clear, the potential person you're trying to supply is not going to be interested if you don't know what you're talking about. I think secondly, something that both Oliver and Rita have spoken about is ignoring credibility signals. So I've seen this a lot where the entrepreneurs have a good product, but they don't build good credibility in the market. So they've got unprofessional proposals, they're missing compliance documents. So all the things that seem soft actually play a significant role in being able to demonstrate credibility in what you're talking about. The second element is, and Rita spoke a lot about that, the client testimonials, and those help to be able to build partnerships that build trust. Because if you're able to demonstrate the highlighting references, so all of that goes a really long way in being able to build strong credibility signals. The third thing being the price first mentality. You see this a lot where the customers go, you'll find the suppliers will go into the conversation already showing the total value and a particular price, but they don't have understanding of the requirements of the quality, the reliability, the innovation, or perhaps even the risk reduction that the client is particularly looking for. So I think there's a big issue when people are focused so much on price first. So I like that both Oliver and Rita's businesses work on solution-driven pricing, which in this kind of industry is significantly important, because one is able to see the difference between someone who provides just a product and someone who's actually able to add value beyond the service or solution that the product is providing. And then I think the fourth thing, is that entrepreneurs aren't able to show scalability or sustainability. A lot of them will come with you to want to supply, but they only want to serve a short-term need. And a lot of what Oliver and Rita were talking about is that in their businesses, they want to build partnerships versus just building one-source suppliers. So I think that suppliers come in without doing the research about the needs of the particular company. So they don't know that they can service more than just the particular need at the time. So I think being able to immediately demonstrate that product or your business is able to show long-term partnership potential is really important. So if we grow with you, can you handle it? And I think that's the big question that, excuse me, you always want to ask the entrepreneur. And I think the last thing is that we see a lot of entrepreneurs who get stuck in like pitch frenzy. So they go through a lot of pitches, make a lot of like promises around certain deliverables, and you find that they lack critical call to action at the end of every conversation. So it's important to have client-orientated call to action. And also the failure to follow through is one of the biggest issues with small businesses trying to do business with big business. is that big business doesn't have the hand-holding time or capacity to be able to follow through if you said you're going to send a quote today, or if you said you're going to send your company profile. And many times you engage with entrepreneurs and you ask for a basic follow-through document. Can I have your company profile to see what else you have? And that'll take 3-4 days. So I think those 5 things are, for me, the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make in that initial pitching and trying to cement themselves on a path of becoming potential partners.
Such needed, or such important advice, and I really hope that every founder that listening takes notes. And I want to highlight the point that you're speaking around, demonstrating sustainability and scalability, because I think it connects back to the point that Oliver made around show the vision, show that this is where we are going, this is our plan. We are not just here for the now, and then you take it bit by bit, bite by bite, and carry on with that. And also the follow through. I think very often as entrepreneurs, we really shoot ourselves in the foot. Like, it's as simple as just send the company profile. But the reason they're actually not sending it is because the company profile is probably not ready, or because they keep changing their business every day. So it's, so when you keep doing different things, now it's like, oh, okay, today it's this profile, today it's this profile. So I think it's, very important to have your house in order in that way, so that when you're going to the client, that you're ready for everything that they're going to be asking, and you don't delay that process. Because I think in that delay, in that lag, you're giving the customer an opportunity to either forget you or to question whether or not you are a trusted supplier to them. I want to jump into, the supplier process, getting in and actually staying in. Oliver, I'd like to bring you in. What does Solink's supplier onboarding process look like? And what are the common pitfalls entrepreneurs or you've seen entrepreneurs encounter along the way?
Yeah, okay. So I think the best way I can answer that is almost in terms of the role we fulfill in the market. So in the embedded renewable space, we act as an intermediary between customers looking to procure renewable systems and then suppliers looking to supply them that system. So we built the online procurement portal where we pre-qualify potential suppliers on behalf of customers. So I think we've vetted about 150 suppliers on there who offer a variety of different solutions, whether that's battery or PV or combinations or finance solutions, etc. So what we do in that respect is really looking at the supplier's kind of corporate financial corporate structure, financial state capabilities and stability, and as well as their sort of track record and relevant experience. So that's really how we break it down. We've got a whole lot of metrics that companies need to follow, and a bunch of documentation that they would give for us to verify that they are suitable to build a project on behalf of one of our customers. At the same time, noting that we want new entrants to enter this market and create competition and create availability of supply, because the demand is generally quite high. So I think our role there is making sure that the adjudication is done and the weighting of the supply is done on a project basis. So it's not just a once-off, you're either a good supplier, you're not a bad supplier, or a qualifying supplier, non-qualifying supplier. It's rather to say, okay, well, for this level of project, 10 or 20 megawatt project, we need this level of track record. And for a smaller level of project, we need a substantially lower level of track record. So I think that the creation of a procurement platform helps enable that, because we can quite then easily live adjust the scorings for suppliers based on the project type. See if that's done on a sort of more old-fashioned binary. It's a lot more admin to then keep changing things as there's different projects. So that's, I think, the beauty of the technology there, which potentially helps smaller players. So where we find sort of entrepreneurs or startup businesses maybe going wrong is kind of looking for to get those big projects up front. I think sometimes the reality is you really need to earn your stripes. You need to start off on the smaller project, show the track record, show the proof that you are able to deliver, that you can build the smaller projects or execute on the smaller deals, and then build yourself up. So I think that's just a reality that businesses need to plan for. So that overreaching is an issue. And then I think then the last point I'll touch on is really then, once you are a supplier, you are registered, vetted, I think then it's points I think Mandisa touched on is really around the execution. So you've got to actually deliver on now you've been appointed, so now you've got to deliver. So that's absolutely fundamental. companies who deliver then stay around and get prioritized for more and more deals and bigger projects. And then I think the second point is sort of linked to that, but obviously the ability to kind of create a strong relationship and build the trust, which I think is something else that's been spoken of a lot. And I think quite simply, it's a quote I always remember from an old school teacher, but trust equals promises made versus promises kept. So you've got to make promises and you've got to keep as many of those as you can, hopefully all of them. And that really is a simple way of building trust.
Great. And I love that formula. Trust equals promises made and promises kept. It's actually, and that really defines or breaks down what really trust is. I trust you because you said you would do what you did and you did it. I don't trust you because you said you would do something and you didn't do it. And it's as simple as that. Thank you for that. Very practical. And you've really helped make these invisible steps that entrepreneurs and SMMEs don't often see, have really presented, it in quite a clear, visible way. Rita, I want to bring you back in, and Agripower works across supply chains. What systems or routines have helped your business consistently deliver to both your large and your small clients?
So for us, to consistently deliver to both our large and smaller clients, we've actually developed a modular, scalable operating system for every project. So regardless of the size, it's built on our core pillars of like a rigorous compliance and proven workflows. So that allows us to tailor a solution perfectly from a single installation to a complex multi-site rollout. And in terms of payment as well, a lot of our OEM or our suppliers enjoy working with us because we make immediate payments to them. And which some of the some of the businesses won't be able to do that, or they'll wait for 30 days before they pay for the product. We've accumulated enough cash flow in order for us to pay on time, receive payment on time as well from our client, because we've developed that kind of ethos both with our suppliers and our clients. So some of the clients, instead of the market practice where the client has to pay us 80% upfront, sometimes due to trust, we're happy for them to pay us at a later stage. So that is obviously client dependent. And then a key to our smooth delivery from our network is also a one-stop shop for a lot of the installers. So we have our own installers. We have sub-installers that we subcontract as well. So if we supply products to installers that are not our own installers, we have a rigorous compliance where they have to follow for specific systems. So for a 5 kilowatt versus a 50 kilowatt system, all the fuses, the special protective devices will be entirely different. So we'll expect them, if you're buying from us, this is how the type of product that we want to use, the quality of the product, and how we want it to be installed. And that's why a lot of the installers enjoy working with us, because some of the installers are electrician turned installers. So they don't necessarily understand the technical aspect that goes behind it. And that's where we talked about education earlier, how we educate not just our clients, but our partners as in installers by understanding the systems. So we'll learn from our OEMs, and then we'll pass on these knowledge to our partner installers or our own installers. And we think that this support actually ensures like consistency, and it prevents delays and makes our installers want to work with us more. So then we've developed a database of installers that we vetted and that we enjoy working with. So we all share a pool of resources and work. And that's how I think we can grow the market, especially for smaller businesses. You can't rely on one or two jobs, but how do we actually pull together our resources and, share this pie? So yeah, that's how we turn guarantees a reliable execution for our clients. And then I think the biggest lesson from our anchor partners, especially the bigger clients as well, is that transparency trumps perfection. So a lot of the companies, they want to be this perfect, person or company, right? But it's impossible. So when something happens, we'll tell our clients immediately, look, this is the type of issues we are experiencing. This is the envisaged delay. So we'll keep in constant communication with our clients to avoid this kind of miscommunication. And I think these valued predictable communication, advanced warnings, actually, it's much better than, a perfect delivery. And clients appreciate that. And that's why they prefer coming back to us or refer us to other clients. So I think by being transparent and a reliable partner is ultimately more critical than being a flawless one.
Well, that's so great. And I think I like the point you're making about because you're taking the client with along the process. So, I want to know what's happening. It's almost like, if you're going to be late for dinner and the dinner's at 7, you can't tell me at 7 that you're going to be late because you knew at 6:30, already at 6 even, that you were going to be late, So I think it's that honesty and transparency, because then at least the client, because you also rob the client of the opportunity to plan for the delay, because now it becomes an even bigger issue because you've waited so long and kept quiet. So really great advice, such a really grounded take, and really highlights that delivery at the end of the day is everything. Mandisa, to close off this round, I'd like to hear from you. What are the practical steps that entrepreneurs should take before they even try to register as a supplier? I think, you register the business and you're already saying, I want a vendor number, but I feel like there's something that actually has to happen between those two stages.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think the first one, we've spoken about it extensively. Get your house in order. Ensure that the business is legally and for legal and compliance purposes is ready. In this energy sector, there are a lot of specific certification. It's highly regulated. Make sure you've got everything that you need. Keep the compliance documents ready and available should anyone request for them, because that also it reduces the trust if you're not able to produce the documents that you say you have. Secondly, build strong internal foundations. I can't emphasize the importance of financial readiness. Being able to keep proper bookkeeping, your tax compliance, financial statements, and also knowing what kind of products capacity-wise financially you're able to take. A lot of entrepreneurs will get the project and lack the financial backing to be able to execute projects. Is your operational system ready for you to be able to supply the particular client? Do you have clear processes that will show the person you're trying to supply that you can deliver quality? Your quality control processes are in place, and that should they have issues, you've got the post customer service that Rita spoke about being critical to separating yourself from your competitors. Capacity planning, we spoke about in depth about being able to deliver on the promise that you make. What can you deliver today, and what can you scale up to? I think is a critical decision for entrepreneurs to be able to say. That transparency that Rita spoke about. You should be able to say to your customer, I can deliver X amount today, but in a week's time, I can scale up to be able to deliver the balance of it. So keep your customer informed about what your challenges are. And I think, again, we spoke about the understanding your target market and your target client, because those two things, if you research the industry, you research the organization, and you're able to understand what your particular customers' requirements are, what their procurement processes are, because sometimes your internal processes won't align with your customer processes. So how do you factor in if you've got a company where you're being paid in 30 days, but you have to deliver in 7 days? So being able to research and make sure that the processes have alignments, and where there's a lack of alignment, you have made provision for those lack of alignments. Developing the professional brand presence, we spoke about that. Imagine you get 5 different company profiles, 4 of them have spelling mistakes. You're definitely not going to consider those people. So being able to invest in what seems like it's little, but is very important. And then thirdly, then the fifth thing is being able to build relationships before the application. So Rita spoke about how she speaks at industry events, being able to go to industry events and position yourself to be visible and credible in the ecosystem in which you operate in. And I think lastly, I'll re-emphasize again, clarify your value proposition, articulate clearly what problem you're trying to solve. And I think what's always important, if you're positioning yourself to supply a service or supply products to someone, is being able to demonstrate to them is, how can I reduce your risk, or how can I save you costs, or how can I add to your innovation? And again, that talks to being able to tailor specific messaging that talks to efficiency, reliability, and risk reduction. And I think that's what people look for when they look at suppliers. Is the supplier going to be efficient? can I rely on them, and are they going to be able to reduce the risk, my supplier risk, which as a result will then implicate your reputational risk. And as you've both alluded to the fact that a lot of the industry relies on trust. And so if you're not able to deliver because your suppliers aren't delivering to you, then so you want to be able to make sure that your suppliers, if you onboard them, are going to continue and take as seriously the ability to reduce your reputational and supplier risk as well.
Thank you for that. Really, really practical steps. And I think, the more, I guess, the more conversations I have, the longer that I'm in entrepreneurship, the more I'm certain that it is not sexy. People think it is. Like, people are like, oh, you're an entrepreneur, must be so nice. No, it's admin. It's admin, it's processes, it's documents, it's documenting every single thing. And I think that's really what distinguishes, a successful entrepreneur, a business that's able to scale, and a business that, that doesn't necessarily scale, is because only in getting your admin right, only in having proper processes, only in having even proper relationships with funders for you to be able to, deliver if payment dates are late, only then can you actually be able to say you're able to scale. Because if you don't have a process, there's nothing to scale. If there's no clear process and we had to remove you for a day or even a week from your business, would the business survive? And I think that's also, the true test is whether or not you're going to be a credible supplier or your market ready is, can we take you out for a bit? And would somebody be able to pick up this book and do exactly what you said you do, or are you changing your mind every day? So thank you very much for such really valuable insights. I could have this conversation the whole day, but I am mindful of people's time. So I'd like to just round off and just have a final round of questions for you, and really just, parting words, so for the entrepreneur that's listening right now, let's end it with something practical and personal. Oliver, to begin with you, what is the one thing an entrepreneur can do this week to improve their odds of being selected by a client like Solink?
Yeah, I think that it's probably a bit of a repeat of some of the things we discussed, but I think it's really on understanding what is their core delivery. I always use the term like, what is your core flywheel? What's going to drive your engine? And then focusing on that. So I think a lot of the things you've spoken about documentation and proposals, if you focus on a single element and you just keep doing that and keep improving that, your flywheel starts spinning and creates significant momentum. And I think by sort of focusing and sticking on a particular scope and consistently optimizing and improving that scope and taking the learnings that you get out of any feedback or client engagements to continually improve that, I think that's the biggest step a sort of startup or entrepreneur could do to really enable themselves to make progress and get contracted by more customers.
Perfect. Love it. Focused and actionable. Rita, if I can hear from you, what's the one hard learned lesson that you'd pass on to founders trying to build credibility in a sector that's really dominated by, your incumbents, the names we've seen all the time? Like, what is the one hard lesson that you've learned where you've had to say, hi, I'm here too?
So the hardest earned lesson is this. I think we need to stop selling your technology and you must start selling your clients' solved problem. So early on, we obsessed over our specs, the efficiency of the system, the proprietary tech, and then the incumbents' eyes glaze over. And they're like, I don't care about your technology. They only care about their own risk, their reliability, and the bottom line, right? But you must also be ready it's difficult to onboard a big client, but you must also be ready to say no to a big client, especially when the payment term is bad. So it's happened to us where they almost bankrupted us, and I had to catch them by their balls, for the lack of a better word. But I managed to turn the table around and say, look, you call me on a Saturday evening to meet your client the next day, early morning in Soweto. So this is what I want in terms of my payment. Instead of only getting my payment after 120 days, I want an upfront deposit. And then the client was able to say, okay, cool, we'll do that for you. So, it's having the balls to say no and to be consistent in what you do and trust what your journey is about. And we learn to refrain from everything. We stopped saying, here's how our system works, and started saying, here's how we guarantee your production won't be interrupted by load shedding, or this is how we de-risk your compliance journey. So it's really shifting that mindset and speaking in stepping into the shoes of the client to see what they would like to hear. So to end off, I think credibility isn't built on being the most innovative. It's built on being the most reliable and least risky choice. So you have to position yourself not as a competitor, but as the specialist who solves a specific problem that the giants are too slow to address, right? So yeah, that's my take.
Great. And exactly the kind of truth that I think all entrepreneurs need. Mandisa, if I can end off with you, what's your practical advice for entrepreneurs trying to move from pitching to actually delivering in the market?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Togo. I think most importantly, I think I've got 5 non-negotiables. Only promise what you can deliver. Get your systems right very early in your business. Communicate like a partner. Invest in capability, not just branding, and treat the first contract as if it's an audition. So you want your client to be the one who calls you back without having to re-audition every time your client calls you back. And I think the final thought I have just around what makes an entrepreneur stand out amongst other entrepreneurs. And those who stand out are those who match professionalism with reliability, and those who see every delivery as an investment in long-term trust. And I think if entrepreneurs can really focus on matching professionalism with reliability, I think they'll be able to build long-term trust, which, as we've heard from Oliver and Rita, is what they're looking for in suppliers.
Thank you for that. A perfect place to end. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Entrepreneurs in Energy Conversations, and our last episode of this series of Entrepreneurs in Energy Conversations. We will catch you all next year, but do look out. We do have some interesting webinars and masterclasses that we've got scheduled for entrepreneurs. We've really talked about starting a business. We've talked about raising capital, about winning contracts, but today we unpacked what probably might be the most important part of all, being chosen, and to continue to be chosen. If there's one thing I hope that you take away, is that access is earned. It's not just the paperwork, it's positioning, it's consistency, and the relationships that you cultivate and build. To our incredible guests, thank you so much for sharing so generously of your journeys, your insights, and your truths and expertise. And to you, the listener, thank you for being part of this journey. Your work matters, your energy matters. And if you keep showing up with clarity and consistency, the market will respond. Until next time, stay building, stay bold, and stay charged. Thank you for joining us on this installment of Entrepreneurs in Energy Conversations. Until next time, keep building and keep innovating.